Well, what a beautiful day it is here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course down here in Ohio in the United States of America. It is looking to be a pretty hot day out there at the moment, and boy, we are getting set for a thrilling race for 30 minutes of racing action here for the iRacing IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge for round number 9 here in the Ohio state. Welcome, everybody, to Race Spot Friday Night Prime Time. I'm Nolan Rempel and Stefan Schlack here beside me in the commentary box today, and Connery Maddox sitting behind the cameras for today's 30 minutes, of racing action. So, Stefan, we come on over to a track that is unbelievably technical, only really one good pass opportunity, and that is all the way down the longest of the back straightaways, right down into what is going to be turn 4 down there. So it's going to be a pretty exciting race here today with how much these cars are going to be struggling for grip here, as the track is really hot down there at the moment, and we're entering the final quarter of the season as well.
Yeah, most definitely, Nolan. This is going to be rear tire scream city for the GT4s, all the way through the S's from turn 4 to the Thunder Valley. That is after the exit of turn 9. These cars will be heavily struggling for any rear grip, especially with all the elevation change they have to face through the apexes. So those Porsche 718 Caymans that are struggling somewhat with that rear tire grip are really up for a challenge today.
And it really is a Porsche field. I mean, technically the BMW M4 GT4s, the McLaren 570S cars, they are technically a part of the GT4 field as well, but not today. It is dominated today by the 718 Caymans out there on the circuit. So it's going to be a good day for Porsche here. Once again, the Porsche 718 Cayman Club Sport has been the dominant car all season long so far. Nobody's really different apart from a few very brave drivers, but usually it has not really gone the way of those drivers. It's very hot down there at the track, as a matter of fact. 112 degrees Fahrenheit, about 44 degrees Celsius down there on the racetrack at the moment. That's 14 degrees hotter Celsius than it is in the air, 15 actually, and pretty windy as well. 17 km/h winds just blowing off to the southwest here, so it is a pretty dry day, and it is a very hot and windy day down there as well. You reckon that'll definitely have an impact here as to how this race could play out here, Stefan?
Not so much the winds. As we know, these GT4s aren't air affected pretty much whatsoever. They just have a pseudo rear wing on their cars. But the real trouble point will be that 44 degrees Celsius. However, I have to mention that all the practice sessions that I have been spectating these guys attend have been extremely hot as well. So by all means, they should be very accustomed to what they see on track here today.
Qualifying presently underway. Marcus Giroux sits on pole for the moment, ahead of Lewis Ward by just about 2/10. Nicholas Denos just goes up to the 3rd position. Gillian Salomon puts in a time just 0.03 of a second off of Giroux. The number 5 car, no doubt, looking a little bit nervous for the TCRs. Kieran Harrison currently in the front there by just over 1/10 of a second. Damian Owen Harris, last week's winner, is down in 3rd. Miguel Garcia 4th. Quentin Guinness in 5th for the moment. And George Simmons, we're watching him right now on his first time lap here on the day.
Interesting, we're still missing Miguel Freitas on the track. Hasn't even entered the server yet, so a big contender for the win here today already seems to be struggling with even getting to the track.
Well, I have the answer for you on that one, Stefan, and this was mentioned in our YouTube chat by Miguel Freitas himself. Wheel failures for him. He has just had a massive technical failure on his own sim rig, so he is not going to be able to compete in today's race. So already one driver out before we even get through qualifying. Definitely a very unfortunate situation there for Freitas. She'll be the only driver to not be able to put a lap in. And look at George Simmons going top of the boards by 23 thousandths of a second.
The one where he thinks he belongs up to first spot. Yeah, didn't see anything else coming from George Simmons. If we're perfectly honest, he is one of the drivers that is extremely well on tracks like these.
Currently observing Jascha Hellrung in his effort to try to get in another good lap. He's actually on his cooldown lap by now. He's on lap 3 of his run. Max Kamara has meanwhile top Marcus Giroux on pole by about 0.029, about 0.03 of a second up there for Kamara to put that 21 car out there on the pole position as well. So these guys, once again, it's very, very competitive with all of these drivers throughout the field. I mean, look at the TCRs even. The top 3 separated by less than half a tenth. Same with the GT4s.
I mean, the whole GT4 field is covered by just 0.8 of a second. That tells you how competitive these guys are. By the way, that's 12 drivers in this GT4 field today.
12 of the GT4s, 12 of the TCRs as well. It's a perfectly even split all the way through. Of course, will more likely be an 11-car field here with Miguel Freitas out of the running order here very early on. Just 1 minute left in qualifying, and I think at this point most drivers have set in their laps. George Simmons is just coming to the line now at the end of his second flying lap. We'll have to see if he improves on this pole position time. And in fact, he will. Goes up by another couple hundredths of a second there to put himself half a tenth up from Ross Balfour behind him in second.
I have to say, I wasn't expecting the TCR field to be further apart than the whole GT4 field. It is a tenth now that the difference is between first and last, or 77 100ths of a second in the TCR field from first to 11th. Kind of speaks on how much these GT4 drivers were able to improve, especially if you compare the gap from first to last to the very first race that we saw this season.
Qualifying is complete, so as we cycle things on over to today's 30-minute race session, let's take a rundown here for the starting grid for round number 9 of the iRacing IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge from Mid-Ohio. Max Kamara on pole. Marcus Droog right beside him in the second position. Gillian Salomon is going to be in third. The Frenchman, Lewis Ward, is going to be in fourth position with Nicolas Denos rounding out the top 5. Florian von Minkvitz rounds out the first half of your GT4 field. Alessandro Barbagallo is in 7th with Michael Janey in 8th. Justin Rem in 9th. Joshua Hellrung in 10th. Alex Schmidt in 11th with Henrik Weber rounding out the 12-car field. For the TCRs, it is once again George Simmons on the pole by about half a tenth. Ross Balfour sits in second behind him. Kieran Harrison in third. Damien Owen Harris is in fourth. Miguel Garcia in fifth. Corentin Guinness is in 6th with Michael Polasek in 7th. Ishmael Habib Jimenez in 8th. Adam Magdal in 9th. Marcos Garcia 10th. Brian Holmes and Miguel Freitas round out the 12-car field. Of course, we're not expecting Freitas to be able to take to the grid today. The driver to note here today in your TCR field, Stefan, is of course going to be George Simmons. He had the last race at Long Beach 1 when an admittedly over-opportunistic move, I think it's safe to say the least, from Damien Owen Harris saw not just himself, but also the second place driver knocked out of the running order as well in the final corner of the final lap. Harris went on to claim the win. It was a pretty controversial win, all things considered. A lot of drivers in the TCR field were quite unhappy with the win, but George Simmons is definitely looking to kind of come back swinging here today in Mid-Ohio, and he's looking to maybe pick up another win on the season.
Yeah, you can probably call that the most controversial finish of IMSA history on the race spot. But yeah, no, in all fairness, it probably was the win of George Simmons until that pass attempt happened. Either way, that's a week past. We're at Mid-Ohio, much more challenging track than Long Beach, I'd say, for TCR. Let's see what happens today.
The GT4s are off and away here on their one and only pace lap, and it's about half a pace lap as well here. They're already up to the final set of corners. Pace car and iRacing deciding they're going to take these guys around halfway already. So the pace car is going to pull into pit road in the hands of Max Kamara. Green flag drops as they come to the final corner. We're underway from Mid-Ohio in round number 9 of the iRacing IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. Side by side for second, down for turn number 1. Gillian Salomon trying to hug the inside line to take second place away from Marcus Droog, who's trying to fend him off around the outside line here on the Expo 1. Droog is going to be able to hang on to the second position for now. Salomon follows him through. Clean so far for the GT4 field as they're starting to snake across the track here. Drivers starting to go defensive here in their little separate runs. The GT4s also clean through turn number 1.
Yeah, seems like they have been able to keep it clean, although there is somebody quite far off the field. So maybe something happened on the start that we did catch on our cameras.
Oh, big crash of the GT4s. Florian von Minkvitz has just been spun round just in the back there. And it looks like Nicolas Denos is also taking a slide. So a couple drivers having struggles in the GT4 field very early here. Both drivers made big contact with the barriers. We'll take a look at that now as we watch to see what happened here in this battle for the GT4s. And you were also right. There was also that incident on the start with the TCRs. Adam McDowell was right in the center of that. So we'll probably come back to that in a moment here. But this is what happened in the GT4 field.
Oh! Wow!
Hard into the wall there for Minkvitz. Slid back across the track. There was Denos, the other driver that was caught up in that incident, the 23 machine. Now, the incident with the TCRs happened before they even took to the green flag here, and that was the driver that you saw way off the pace there, Steph. It was Adam McNally who got caught up in a collision between Michael Polasek and Corentin Guinness as well, right in the second to last corner before they even took to the green flag for the TCR field.
That explains why Guinness dropped halfway through the field then at the very start of this race. As was that another incident there? Oh, that is the replay actually for Polasek.
Right there.
Oh, something happened already to Guinness though.
I think they just kind of bunched up there in that second to last corner, and it was just a chain reaction that sent those guys around. We'll take a ride on board here with Corentin Guinness here. Oh yeah, that is exactly what it was. The fiercely forward car right in front of him really checked up, and that caused him to kind of get scared off and collected a whole ton of drivers in the back. So about a quarter of the TCR field was involved in that incident there. But so far, apart from that, we're completely green off of the race start. So 2 minor crashes so far, and that's pretty good considering how crazy this track can get.
Yeah, most definitely. And Max Camara in the GT4, by the way, you can see it on the left-hand side of your screens. Already a full second ahead of Marcus Chirac in the second place. So Max in the 21 really putting down the hammer early in this race.
A lot of cars running really close together. We're currently watching the TCR battle for the race lead about a quarter second apart. We're going to look up now. This is Max Camara, the current race leader out there in front of your GT4 field. You got the battle for second place in that class just behind, with Marcus Chirac continuing to try to fend up Gillian Salomon just behind for the third position. And Salomon has been doing a good job of trying to maintain a nice and close gap, but it's just so difficult to pass there on this track, even if you're in the TCR car, let alone one of these GT4s.
Very much so, pretty much impossible to pass here, just on pure pace at Mid-Ohio if you're trying to overtake a same car class. However, it is rather easy to push someone into a mistake just by applying the pressure so much because of how hard especially this upcoming Sector 2 is for the GT4s. So wouldn't be surprised if especially right now here Gillian Salomon really tries to put on the pressure onto the rear of Chirac to maybe push the 5 into a mistake.
The DCR leaders are closing in there in the run-up on the final stretch right now. Simmons is all over the place, going defensive against Harrison, who's going to try to find his way around the outside then to turn 4. No dice for the Ford car, got cut off by George Simmons, is now going to cut back to the left side of the track and nearly goes 2 wheels onto the grass. So Harrison is definitely trying to have a great run here to try to get himself secured here and maybe pick up the race lead. Of course, we're going to have to wait and see here how this is going to work out for all these drivers in the field. It's going to be difficult here to see how this will play out, but I have a feeling here this could get spicy here in just a few moments.
Yeah, the question is, what can the guys behind do? Damien Owen Harris right now 4th place, pretty much last of this train for 1st place. Michael Garcia already quite a bit behind Damien Owen Harris, about 7 to 8 tenths, depending on where exactly on the track they are. So Garcia seems to be a little bit struggling for the pace to keep up with the top 4.
And this top 4 is starting to split apart in that final sector on the track as well. You got to be so careful with your movements through that final sector on the track. It explains really why this field is tended to split on up. They're even further away last time by than they were the last time they went through here into turn number 2. So we'll have to see if Ross Balfour can make a move on Harrison, because Harrison is too far back from Simmons to realistically be able to make a move. But look at Simmons already ducking right back to the right side of the track, trying to make sure that he hugs the tightest line around this straightaway and keeps Harrison on the offensive right behind him.
Yeah, but it also kind of shows in behind Harrison, he was in the draft all the time there for Simmons, and yet he wasn't able to really close in whatsoever on that TCR up ahead of him. So it just shows that this straight, yes, it might be long for TCR, it still is long enough to really do them any favor in the draft.
The draft really does not have too much to say in this track here. The only place where it really has a word or two is, of course, down the stretch between turns 1 and 2, and then down through between turns 2 and 4 out of the keyhole. So those are the only places where the draft really has any part to do with the racing on this track. Everywhere else, it is You know, it's pretty just single file racing exactly what we're seeing here, but these guys, they're still getting themselves nice and close. And now look at Harrison trying to go defensive against, unless he was trying to go defensive against Balfour there, the number 3 car. So a lot of drivers here are starting to kind of pick up these battles a little bit more now that the first few laps are done and dusted here. These guys are, I think, getting a little more settled here. They're trying to get themselves into the rhythm where they can actually start properly to do battle for these positions. We're kind of keeping an eye on several battles at the moment. We've got this battle for the race lead, 4-car battle for the race lead, that is, as they're continuing to just go single file for the time being. Nobody's able to get close enough to realistically be able to make these moves. Marcus Girac is also feeling some pressure. Gillian Salomon for the second position in the GT4 field. He's made a couple mistakes in the last little while, but so far, nothing that has been too bad that has caused him to lose an egregious amount of time.
Yeah, but obviously with every little mistake Chirac does here, because of Salomon putting him in under so much pressure, he uses up his tires more and more, and even though 30 minutes might not seem too long for a GT4 car, you can really work up these tires, because obviously with a shorter race you can use more cameras and use the tire more, work it up more, because obviously you're only racing 30 minutes, so it only has to realistically last 30 minutes to give it that optimum grip that it offers. And every little slide that does damage a little bit of wear really can cost you down the long run.
Oh, absolutely. Every little slip up, especially on a track like this, will be extremely costly here. Meanwhile, in the battle for the race lead, Harrison going side by side with George Simmons now for the TCR race lead, trying to have a go at him here to turn 3, but that's going to cause Harrison to maybe lose out to Ross Balfour here. It was a brave look around the outside into turn 2. Simmons definitely did a great job of covering him off here, but this field a lot closer this time by than they were the last time through here. Now almost a third of the way into the race. Balfour trying to close in on Harrison. Harrison's got a massive run on Simmons, though. He's going to have another go at him here around the outside of turn 4. He's not going to back on his easily this time round, but at the end of the day, Simmons taking stub, but he dips 2 wheels into the grass. That causes him to compromise his line for turn 5 slightly. Look at how close they are to each other. They're almost bumping each other.
Yeah, but still no passing opportunity for Kieran Opens here. What a driver George Simmons is to keep his calm under so much pressure, dipping 2 wheels in the grass and still keeps his line tight, and especially keeping Kieran behind.
Harrison's no doubt going to be getting a little bit more impatient here as time goes on. At this point, he's definitely the quicker of these 2 drivers. Down into the second to last corner. Through the carousel, Simmons swings it wide, then cuts it in for the final corner. Harris trying to get the over-under, get more momentum off of the last corner onto the front straightaway. Will not be close enough to have the look here into turn number 1. He's just going to fill Simmons' beers, though. Make sure that Simmons knows that he is still very much there, and he is going to be kicking that door open any second now. He could have the run here down into turn number 2. He's going to look for the left side of the track as Simmons starts to squeeze him in towards the outside line. Covers the line for turn 2. Harrison trying to go around the outside again. Will this one work? Balfour sticks his nose there trying to go for second as well.
Yeah, Kieran just doesn't have any other opportunity than to go around the outside of turn 2, as once again he's being forced around a long way through turn 4. Question is, can he make it this time, because he's much further along.
Now side by side through turn 4, they're getting so close to call there, and Harrison's gonna maybe take the race lead away from George Simmons here through turn number 5 and up and over the hill, and Simmons does back out of that one wisely there from the Apex Racing driver, but that was definitely a very gutsy move there from Harrison, a way to remain committed to that one. Once he got alongside of the door, there was no going back from that one, but how they didn't make contact there, I'll never know, but it just goes to show you these guys can really race just about anywhere.
Yeah, much respect given between the 4 and the 1 there. Great racing over the crest, and yeah, it finally paid off for Harrison. Kind of set up that second turn for the long run down for, obviously, with going the wider line and being able to cut back into the racing line, gives himself that little bit more momentum than the one of George Simmons, and that's what ultimately made him be able to make that pass happen.
still isn't over either, because George Simmons definitely has got a big head of steam here coming down towards turn 2. So if he can get a good run out through the keyhole, he'll be able to kind of get a good run down to the turn number 4. Don't forget as well, you got Ross Balfour and Damien Owen Harris just barely waiting in the wings just behind these guys, and they're trying to find any mistake that they can really take advantage of to capitalize. So through the right-hand kink of turn 3 and down for 4. Continues to make the lunge around the outside. He's going to look for it, but he's not going to be nearly close enough to make this dive, unlike Harrison was one lap prior. Simmons has got to make sure that he just stays nice and tight here to the forward car, so that way if the forward car makes a mistake, he's going to be right there to capitalize on it. So throwing stuff we're seeing in your TCR field, it's definitely one of the closer battles you got out there on the track just at the moment. So this is definitely going to be one of those fights that we got to keep watching for right through to the end of the race. I mean, once again, when the GT4s start to kind of peter out and they start to, kind of get a bit more split off like we're seeing here, the TCRs are definitely making sure to keep us on our toes here.
Yeah, surprise, surprise, the front wheel drive once again provides the action at the track that is a little bit more driver and setup focused. Obviously with the GT4s being just a hard car drive. Unsurprising that they split up in very small groups with a little bit of traffic in between, but as you can see here, we have a little bit of a battle train developing between Justin Ram, Barbara Gallo, Jenny and Hellrung. And we have to kind of give it to Rim. He started in 9th place up to 6th place already after 9 laps. So he has been doing a great job on moving his way through the field.
Especially with how hard of a track this place is to pass on. I mean, like we talked about at the top of the broadcast, you can only really pass in your run down to turn number 4, and maybe, if you're brave enough, down into the keyhole at turn 2. But you realistically can't really make a pass anywhere else. At least you can't initiate a pass anywhere else just because of the nature of the track. There's no straight long enough, no braking zone really hard enough. And there you can see a lot of positions gained throughout the race so far. A lot of drivers so far have only moved up 2-3 spots so far over the course of the day. I believe one of the biggest movers so far is going to be Justin Rim and Marcos Garcia, both drivers up 3 spots where they've started today in their own respective classes, as a matter of fact, as well. So even though, we're not seeing any passing in the GT4 field, they're still nice and tight with each other as well.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, by the way, biggest loser Nicolas Denos, one of the 2 victims in that first lap incident we saw in the GT4s, as we actually have side-by-side action here for that 5th place.
So this is Justin Ram trying to go at it with Alessandro Barbagallo down in towards the turn 4, and Janie's going to stay in there. He's going to try to get the running around Justin Rim. Battle for 7th is certainly underway for the GT4s, and can Rim hang on to this one around the inside of 5? Not quite. Janie still has the line for 6. So this is one of those side-by-side battles that's going to be, getting really intense here. This is going to shape up all the way through the second half of the racetrack, and just there, the 13 car finally pulls ahead, but not for long. Janie's still trying to fight this line here. He's still trying to initiate this pass. Now, Ram goes into the grass, and here comes Joshua Hillbrung now trying to make a lunge here around the 11 car for the 7th position at the moment. So, once again, the battles with the GT4s, once they start going, they're certainly not going to stop. Approaching halfway now, and Janie might end up actually losing a spot here instead of maintaining the one he's got.
Great driving by these guys. A little bit of a mistake that by the 11 gives the advantage to the 18. But the side spare of that, Yasha Hellrung, might have to set up for turn 2 here.
A bad run for Hellbrung, though, puts him under fire from Alex Schmidt. So they're going to go side-by-side on for 8th and 9th as Schmidt continues to try to work his way up through the field. Deep on the brakes, both drivers go down into the keyhole, and Hellbrung, unsurprisingly, is going to hang on to the spot. But Schmidt had a bit more of a momentum drive off of turn 2, so if you can get a good drive, you could potentially have a look into turn 3, but I don't think it's going to be close enough to make that happen.
Let's wait and see. The car number 20 is not going to be able to even pull side by side. So yeah, one small battle between Rem and Yanni just continued to spark all the battles down the line. And see, look at this, George Simmons under pressure.
George Simmons able to fend off Ross Balfour nicely, though, in the number 3 car. That puts Balfour into striking distance of Damien Owen Harris, but These guys are still closing right on up to the back end of Simmons in the run down this very long straightaway between turns 2 and 4. Kieran Harrison started to pull a gap, now 0.7 of a second. That's a long way to go with these drivers to realistically close in the distance here. So I think Simmons is going to have to stop focusing on the guys behind him, start focusing on the car in front of him. But it's really hard to do when you got Ross Balfour knocking on the door just behind you.
Yeah, very much so, and they have to be a little bit careful because Nicolas Denos has come out of the pit lane again, and he is just ahead of them after he has crashed through the S's. But he pulls off the track right here to the right side of our screen, so he's not impeding our lap battle here.
So far off that he almost went into the tire as well, and he is now stopped, and he is going to take the tow back to pit road. So Dennis's day still effectively not really having the best of runs today, it would seem. He's going to have to really hope for better luck next time. I think at this point he's pretty much out of it. We're going to take a look here at this is Michael Dennis here. Has he got suspension damage there? I think he does, actually. It looks like he can't turn. Yeah, look at that. That's suspension damage.
That's the ultimate camber mobile right there of the 23. Let's see what happens. So he comes out of turn 5 here, turn 6 now. Is it going to happen through 7 and 8?
Something definitely happened here.
Oh, on the grass.
Oh! Yeah, that'll do it. That's where your damage came from. That's one of the hardest hits we've seen all day so far. Dando's, just a bit wide, and once he clipped the grass, yeah, you're not saving that thing. I mean, that's a downhill zone in the grass. That car, I don't care how good your anti-brake, your ABS is, you're not stopping through there.
Yeah, no, it already started to unfold there through turn 7, just clipping too much of the inside curb that kind of made him open that steering wheel again a little bit, jumped his way over to the right side, and then obviously entered turn 8 way too early over the grass there, and that's all she needed to crash into the barrier, saying hello and goodbye, as he now finally has to retire that car for good.
6th place in the GT4, starting to pick on up again. Justin Rem losing now to Michael Janey in the run down towards turn number 4. Janey trying to fight the inside line. Rem still trying to hang on around the outside. Remember, these guys went side by side for the next half a lap like this last time we saw them go side by side through here. We could be in for round number 2 of this dogfight with the Fiercely Ford machine trying to find a way past the Apex Racing team, and this time he is going to get it done. The 11 car up into 6th.
Yeah, this time he was, thankfully for Michael, much further along the 13 through turn number 6, and that's what giving him the advantage. So after being able to crawl his way through the field, Justin Rem seems to be running a little bit out of grip here already, halfway through this race. Actually,
we're almost 2/3 of the race. Yeah, we're already closing in on that 10-minute mark. I mean, these races just fly by so quickly. I mean, you don't think they can really go by in a hurry, but boy, you're having fun like these guys are. They just blaze by, and you don't even notice until it's really the last lap. And I think that's why the racing only really picks up once the crew chief calls out 5 minutes remaining, because of course that is where the realization sets in. It's like, oh wow, we've already been out for that long. I don't have a long time at all. I got to get a move on.
Yeah, speaking about getting a move on, Max Kamara, 3 seconds to cap now back to Chirac, who himself, after the small mistakes of Gillian Salomon, put him 1.2 seconds back. Also has clear skies ahead and behind him.
And Harrison is so far still kind of holding stable there with George Simmons at about 4 tenths, but he's not pulling away as big as he was before. And now down to 3.5 tenths. So George Simmons is starting to close in that gap as well for the TCR race lead. So this could be a battle that we see picking on up here really shortly within the next 2-3 laps, give or take here, provided that Simmons can get a couple of really good drives on the corner and that Ross Balfour cuts in some slack just behind. I think that's what Balfour's doing right now. He's kind of waiting for Simmons to close on up because he realizes if he goes side by side now, they're almost certainly never going to catch Harrison. He's just trying to wait for, I think, George Simmons to really close on up to your race leader, because then they can both go for a win.
Yeah, it is sort of interesting right here what we saw through for Balfour through turn number 5. His line is so different to what Harrison and George Simmons do, where they keep very close eyes on that left side grass. But for really swings over to the right side, all the way past the median of the road to really cut back into the apex, and that gives him a nice boost of speed into turn 6. So that might be something where we really have to look out in the coming laps for Buffalo to try a nice overtake.
Through the final series of corners, 8.5 minutes left on the clock, and not a lot of time left for George Simmons to close it on in. At this point, though, Simmons is a little bit closer to Harrison than Balfour is to Simmons, so he has once again caught your race leader here. So we could see ourselves one heck of a fight here in just a few moments here if George Simmons can manage to continue to put these great laps together. He is consistently faster at this point in time than Kieran Harrison is. It's not by much, but it's enough that it could matter.
Every little inch counts, as they sometimes like to say. George Simmons, question is that just a draft that keeps him with Kieran Harris, or does he actually have something in his setup that keeps him a little bit better on those tires and make them use less and be faster with that in the latter stages of this race? Well, only one way to find out. They have to race there.
And we're at that point now where these guys are going to start getting a little bit more antsy here. The mood's starting to get bolder. The battle's on, by the way, for P3 in the GT4s as well. Let's look at this. Salomon loses out in turn 2, and Lewis Ward gets the undercut on him that time by. One car coming back onto the track. That's Nicholas Denos just up the road from these guys. They just letting cars through to avoid being slapped with some more blue flags and going off track trying to let them through. But now Salomon with a good run here down into the turn number 4. Can he get a pass back on Lewis Ward to get the last podium position here?
Oh my goodness, I think that was a small touch between Sullivan and Ward there. Both keep it together though, and most definitely keep racing for that third position.
That'll start in the run down towards turn number 2 when Salomon and Lewis Ward had to go side by side with each other. Lewis Ward got a really good run down off of turn number 1. Look at that. I think Salomon had to back off because he ran wide. That allowed Lewis Ward to get in on the left side of the track, pulls ahead there, and then Salomon tries to dive it in deep to maintain the position, but goes too deep, and Lewis Ward gets the undercut on. That was some great driving there from Lewis Ward to be able to recognize what was happening and make the best of that situation.
Yeah, good job by Lewis Ward, but let's see, we're staying on board here with Lewis Ward in that 17. Did they actually touch?
We're going to see here down into turn number 4. I think they might have just, if they did, it was just the smallest of little margins. We're going to back it up here. We'll take another look at this one here. We'll maybe see if we can get a better shot of this here. This, I think, will tell the story perfectly here. So, do they make contact? It would be right at the exit, I would think, or right at the entry. No, I don't think they did. I think that might have been clean.
All right there. Oh, no, look at that. Can't cut it any closer than that.
Yeah, any closer, and that would have been a very, very different story with what we saw there.
Yeah, somebody would have most definitely went to the beach if those two would have touched.
5 minutes remain in the battle for P3 and GT4, as well as the race lead, and TCR is still raging on. We'll keep an eye on this GT4 fight. I'll just kind of verbally check in on the battle for the TCR lead. Harrison has pulled a bigger gap, about 0.4 of a second now, over Simmons, who is now trying to go defensive against Ross Balfour. I'll let you know if that starts to develop any further from there, but it looks like Harrison is looking more and more stable out there in the lead. It could potentially have a good shot here coming away with a class win today. This battle for GT3s, for the GT4s, excuse me, for the final spot on the podium, that's where it's at the moment.
Yeah, you know, I have to kind of give it to Alessandro Barbagallo there in that number 22. Both Ward and Salomon got past him for that third position, but somehow Barbagallo keeps on running in behind them. Yes, he is about a second now back from Lewis Ward. However, I wouldn't count him out of this whatsoever, especially if Salomon and Ward try to go side by side yet again.
Salomon trying to close in on Lewis Ward. Meanwhile, further in the back, Marcos Garcia just lost out on 2 spots in the span of 1 corner, so something went horribly wrong for Garcia I believe that was down towards turn number 4, actually, just this last time by when that ended up happening. Salomon still not close enough to have the look here down into the hairpin. Now back up to this battle for the TCR race lead. George Simmons trying to run down your overall race, your TCR race lead, excuse me, Karen Harrison. This has been one heck of a battle so far. I mean, they're about the same distance apart from each other, though Ross Balfour just a little bit closer to Simmons than Simmons is to Harrison. Now, Harrison has got to put in some solid lap times if he wants to manage to keep Simmons behind him, because we know how aggressive that number 1 car can get in these later runs, and he also wants to go for a race win after having one taken away from him just last week in the last corner at Long Beach.
Yeah, most definitely. But also, you kind of have to question George Simmons right there. Does he want to fight really hard once again for first place, especially after knowing what happened at Long Beach? Only he can answer what his thought process really is in these latter stages of this race. It's about 3 laps to go, maybe 2 laps to go here for the TCRs. So he really has to make his moves count if he wants to have that first place in his hand.
We haven't touched in too much on some of the battles further down at the TCR field, but I can tell you right now that Ismael Habib Jimenez has got in his car down at the 14. He just made a pass around the outside of turn 4 on Brian Holmes, was able to pick up another spot there. So these guys have been scrapping away all race long as well. We haven't given them much love, so we'll give them a little bit of attention here now. You can see one GT4 car just in behind these guys. I'm pretty sure that's Danos, it is, who is now 3 laps down for just the TCR field. So he's got to find a really careful way of working his way through this pack. But like I said, Jimenez with that outside pass around Brian Holmes in a turn number 4, he is definitely on a charge at the moment and trying to get himself further on up there. The battle for P3 in GT4s is also still raging on. It's now a 3-car battle as Barbagallo, Salomon, and Lewis Ward all in a train for that last podium position in GT4s.
And how about Guinness? He was the car most affected by that green flag crash in the TCRs, and he is back into 6th place, maybe even has a shot at Garcia. They're just half a second behind him for that 5th place. What a remarkable comeback that would be for Currington if he can match that. But right now we're focusing most definitely on this battle here for 3rd place in the GT4s.
Salomon still closing in a little bit more to Lewis Ward in the run down to turn 2, but runs a bit too deep. That allows Barbagallo to just barely get his nose in there, but the 22 car cutting the 15 some slack and backing out without having to force the issue here. Can he get the run that he needs down for turn number 4? It's a long way down, but I don't think he's going to be close enough. The draft just is not powerful enough in these Porsche 718 Cayman Club Sport GT4 machines, so he is going to be stuck behind Lewis Ward for yet another lap. He's doing a good job, though, of trying to get close. He's taking a much tighter line with this corner. He's kind of taking a wider entry, but then tightening up on the apex a heck of a lot more than some of these other guys are. So I think that kind of tells you what Salomon was trying to do here. He's trying to get the momentum off of some of these slower corners so we could try to get the run down the straights on Lewis Ward. And they're going to be taking that white flag this time by as well, as Max Kamara is going to be taking up on the last lap of the race with just 30 seconds left on the clock. So time's running out in that battle for P3.
Yeah, the question though is, can Gillian Salomon do anything about the pace of Lewis Ward? Seems like Ward is faster in that crucial turn 2 to deny Salomon any opportunities to make that pass happen. However, this time around a little bit wide for Salomon and Ward. Seems to be equal for those two.
Oh, now look at this. That's a big dive there from Barbagallo trying to go around the outside of Salomon for turn 2. No dice there, but Lewis Ward, looked as though Salomon had another big dive on Lewis Ward, and this battle's still not over. I think this is reasonably the last chance here that Salomon is going to have here to try to get past Lewis Ward. Is down to the turn 4, and he is nowhere near close enough. I think this battle is just about settled.
Yeah, seems like most definitely. However, our TCR battles, they're gonna have another lap to find out, and that will be a story to behold as well.
Indeed, so a lot of battles have still yet to be decided. Meanwhile, though, Max Kamara coming through the final set of corners now, and It has been a dominant run so far from that 21 car. He just has now 2 more corners to manage, just the carousel, and then of course the final nondescript left-hander to take him back onto the pit straightaway. Max Kamara, he is going to get it done for Mid-Ohio. He wins round number 9 here at Mid-Ohio for the iRacing IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. In the battle for 3rd, coming through the final corner, Lewis Ward takes 3rd, and Salomon fends off Barbagallo for the 4th position. And that was one heck of a battle with the GT4s raging right through to the end of the race. Meanwhile, in TCRs, the race leads still do battling, going back and forth as well, but so far, none of these guys are able to get close enough as well. They've even split up even more than last time they came through here, so I have a feeling this is going to be a pretty tame end for one of these races.
Yeah, it does seem so, but that battle for 5th place that I was talking about, Guinness and Garcia, they are mighty close together.
Big crash! Hang on, Marcus Garcia's just taken out Brian Holmes in turn number 4. Just slammed into the number 10 car, so big crash there, and I don't know what Garcia was thinking, but if that was not intentional, well then you can color me a different shade of color, because goodness gracious, that was so blatant that I'm angry about it. Coming through the final corner now, Kieran Harrison is going to pick up the race win here for the TCRs. George Simmons in 2nd, able to fend off Rouse Balfour for 3rd. Damien Owen Harris clocks away in 4th with Miguel Garcia in the 5th position. What in the world happened there, though, for the number 10 car? I am stunned, speechless. Brian Holmes is, I believe he is going to be out of this one effectively, and now we're going to take a look at the replay. What on earth was this?
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. That is unacceptable. Completely uncalled for on Garcia's part.
Yeah, most definitely has a weird look to it, if you're honest about that. Garcia.
Why? Why would you? That tells the story right there. I mean, good grief. File a protest against that. I know I would. I would not be surprised if we were about to see Brian Holmes do the same. That is ridiculous. Completely unacceptable. That's something I would expect a bottom split race. I do not expect to see that in the top split race here, where these guys are supposed to be the best in the series on the week. What on earth are you thinking? Well, the race results are in. It is official. So let's take a look down here at how this race is going to kind of tick things out here after round number 9. Max Kamara, a well-deserved victory for the 21 car, up there in 1st position, able to keep that 1.5 second gap against Marcus Giroux right through to the end. Lewis Ward doing a great job weathering the storm, able to fend off Gillian Salomon and Alessandro Barbagallo, finishing out 4th and 5th. Michael Jenny is in 6th with Justin Rim in 7th. Joshua Helmborg is in 8th. Alex Schmidt in 9th. Hendrik Weber in 10th with Florian von Minkfitz in 11th. Nicholas Danos rounds out the 12-car GT4 field. In TCRs, Kieran Harrison is in 1st place with George Simmons just 3/4 of a second back in 2nd place. So close, but no cigar. Ross Balfour is in 3rd. Damien Owen Harris is in 4th. Miguel Garcia rounds out a UK and Ireland 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in your TCR category. I have never seen that before here in the Michelin Pilot Challenge, so a day for first to a scene. Corn de Guinness is in 6th. Ishmael Jimenez and Marcos Garcia in 7th and 8th. Adam McNally in 9th, and Brian Holmes with an undeserving 10th place finish. He should have finished higher. It's so unfortunate for him. Michael Polasek is in 11th with Miguel Freitas, not able to start the race in the 22nd position. My goodness, what a race here that we saw today. Once again, another fantastic show that we're seeing here from Mid-Ohio.
Yeah, and the TCRs once again provide. Now, this crash, I have to say, it kind of wiped my memory clean of what the schedule looks like for the next few races that we still have. I think it's Hockenheim up next, or 2 races from now. Either way, going from Mid-Ohio and just knowing how well these TCRs perform at pretty much any permanent track you can throw them around, it really is going to create quite the great racing from here on out, especially with the championships being on the line.
Well, you are partially correct. Hockenheim coming up here in just 2 weeks' time. It's the Charlotte Roval up next here. So that is going to be interesting. The Charlotte Roval, personally, one of my favorite kind of road course oval hybrids that we got here on the servers. Just behind, of course, the Daytona International Speedway Oval. So we got ourselves a lot of good tracks coming up here to end off the season.
Yeah, the Charlotte Roval, I'm gonna guess that is the new chicane that we're gonna run for that configuration, not the old one, the fast one. So yeah, lots of drafting, lots of braking for these TCRs and GT4s. We know Charlotte can create quite a kerfuffle. Hopefully not for our IMSA Pilot Challenge drivers, but you never know what this series brings.
And we do have one more driver here that is going to give us a bit of a chit chat here today. We don't often get some drivers to talk to us, but well, George Simmons, you certainly seem to like the spotlight. As how many times have you come in to give us a talk this season? But hey, I am not complaining. You come home in the second position after a race today at Mid-Ohio. I would say a much cleaner race for you this time, and thankfully one that this time you weren't costed a win out of somebody else being, well, themselves in the last corner, unlike last week.
Yeah, no, it was a good race actually. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. It was, I guess it probably wasn't quite so exciting for you guys to watch it, I suppose, which is a bit of a shame. This track's not easy to pass, so. But I guess even then, we still had a couple of lead changes, didn't we? Kieran managed to make his way through, and yeah, quite simply, he was just the quickest car out there, and he deserved the win. So yeah, nice job to Kieran.
Well, you had yourself a very good race, all things considered. You're able to stay nice and close and keep Harrison honest right through to the checkered flag. And one small mistake from the 4-car, and you probably would be able to take that race lead back. It's, of course, a very challenging track, though, to pass on. I mean, this is definitely far from the easiest circuit to race on. Do you reckon that's just because of the tight and twisted nature of the track? It kind of reminds me of a thing like Long Beach, but, of course, much larger runoff areas.
Yeah, it's quite a technical circuit, I guess. I mean, yeah. In this car, it's pretty much one line. Well, in any car, really, it's pretty much one line all the way through the second half of the track. And the only real chance you get after the long straight, it's not the heaviest braking zone ever. So yeah, you've really got to put the work in. And I found it quite interesting, really. There was definitely two different styles, I guess. My car was definitely quicker through the long sweeping corners, I would say. But yeah, there was in the two corners in the midsection where it was real slow. The slow left as you come over the crest, and the right. Apologies to anyone who's moaning at me because I don't know the corner names. I was definitely struggling through there. So yeah, I was quite pleased actually. It was a good sort of technical race, really. And yeah, the setup worked okay.
Well, talk about next week, because now we go road course oval hybrid racing at the Charlotte Roval. It's definitely one of my personal favorite road course oval hybrids we got here on the iRacing service. I know it's a track that a lot of others like as well. What are your thoughts on it, though? Do you reckon that'll be a good track here for the TCRs?
It definitely looks good. There's a lot of curb bouncing, and with the touring cars, you can really throw them around. So I think it'll be a good race to watch. Some of the overtaking opportunities are pretty risky, let's just say, and especially the last chicane there. So yeah, it's going to be one where you're going to want to get a good quali and hopefully just stay at the front and leave people behind. Yeah, it's an interesting track. I think we'll all just be praying that the GT4s hold it together through that first section, really, because that could get messy. But so far they've been pretty good this season.
And that they have. Well, it does look as if we're almost about out of time here, George. But before I let you go here, anybody that'd like to shout out for us here today?
Yeah, absolutely. So finally, you've asked me this question every time I come in, and you never do. So yeah, obviously I'm a member of Apex Racing Team, so a couple of sponsors to read out. So SDK Gaming, Simputers. We also got a partnership with VRS. I am actually the Apex Racing Academy coach for the TCR, and I'm using the same setups in all of my official races that you can grab with the Apex Racing Academy data packs. So yeah, that exact same car, you can drive it if you want, and you can just search us and you'll find the website.
And thank you, George, for taking the time to join us here tonight. Definitely a good race for you here today, and best of luck next week at the Charlotte Roval.
Thank you very much.
And that was George Simmons finishing off in the second place here in the touring car class here for round number 9 at Mid-Ohio. Always a pleasure to talk to George. He's a genuinely nice person that I really love to talk to. Well, Stefan, we are just about out of time here today, but well, what are your final thoughts here on the race tonight, and what do you think we can expect coming into next week at the Charlotte Roval?
Tighter packed racing in the GT4s and the TCRs, most definitely for Charlotte, especially with those long straightaways leading into the big chicanes. As George Simmons already said, these are going to be major talking point because it is extremely dangerous to make any passes into those very tight chicanes. However, Charlotte going to be a game changer from what we saw in the last 2 rounds, and it most definitely will bring on the heat, but not like Mid-Ohio with the high track temperatures.
Well, that is going to just about do it then here for round number 9 of the iRacing IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. It's once again been a thrilling one, and now the racing is only going to pick on up from here to the end of the season. I've been Ola Rempel bringing you all the coverage from today's presentation from start to finish. Stefan Schlack here beside me in the commentary box, and Connor Matic down behind the cameras for today's race. But thank you so much for once again taking the time out of your night to join us for another 30 minutes of racing action here today. We will see you all next week at the Charlotte Roval.